Something big is happening in American culture. We are watching as entertainment reveals major secrets about how the population is shifting in terms of their views. One of the big targets of that is the Walt Disney Company, which once upon a time was seen as perhaps the greatest purveyor of family culture and content across the globe. Now, people are leaving the Walt Disney Company in droves. It comes at a time when streaming is growing and growing, and Disney is lowering and lowering. We're to talk about why that is happening. We're to give you the facts behind it and how this may speak to a very broad and major story that we look to be watching in the next years to come. All right, folks, welcome back to another fascinating video here on the WDW Pro channel. Culture Casino has joined us yet again, a fan favorite, of course. And Culture, it's so wonderful to have you help me walk through what I consider to be a little bit of a difficult and broad topic to discuss. We need to distill this into high-value minutes. We're going to do our best to do so. But Culture, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here every single time, and I probably will never refuse an invitation. So thanks for having me.
Well, we have fun conversations. I think the audience enjoys it as well. And Culture, today we're going to be talking about something that I think is sort of a forebearer of what is on the horizon, whether that be good or bad. So let me walk you through a little bit of what we're watching here. Folks, what we do it's our slogan, right? We say this in video after video, explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. Well, it really does matter. And that's why we do this. I mean, we spend vast amounts of time working on this, not because it is frivolous, but because it actually has some kind of indicator where the world is going. So, Culture, we have seen now back-to-back #1 songs on the iTunes charts, right? The back-to-back songs in the middle of summer, well, these tend to be like pop kind of hits, right? Real fun, Justin Timberlake kind of stuff. You see just bouncy kind of summer flicks or summer tunes. Back-to-back now, we've had anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-corruption songs. Okay, that's something to take note of. And in this latest one, it's out of some guy who's just never been heard of before and, is out playing his instrument in the woods. Okay, that's today. You take note of that when that happens, right? That's not Nicki Minaj. That's just random Joe Blow out there singing about how the government is bad as of late and things are not going well. Now, I'm not here to endorse political views. That's not what this channel is about. We aim for the philosophical side of things. But folks, you need to take note of that happening because that doesn't typically happen. In fact, I don't recall the last time it did happen. Now, on top of that, Culture, we are watching what is building up to be one of the most contentious election cycles that we may ever witness in our lives. This may be, and I don't know what's going to happen. It feels like our society is fraying. Both sides are ready to take down the other leader, whether it's through impeachments or indictments. And this doesn't seem to be something that we can get out of, right? I do feel that one side is amping that up far more than the other, and the other doesn't seem to be keying in to the same degree. But whatever you may think, we've watched this happen in other countries before. It doesn't go well. So we'll leave it there for the moment. All of that to say that something culturally is happening in society, and I think that Disney is a recipient of part of what is happening, and it may be the very first. It may be, so people will talk about the situation with the alcoholic beverage company, and they'll say that it was the first time that one group of society turned against and did a boycott, in modern era. No, I think that was Disney. I think Disney with their Lightyear movie. I think that's what started all of this, and so. Culture, let me show you something real quick. This is an article out of the Hollywood Reporter, and coming out today, actually, 5 a.m., so not long ago. It says, linear TV falls below 50% of viewing for the first time. This is by Rick Porter. We'll read it in a moment, but Culture, I want to give you a chance to respond to what we've said. The key thing I think here is we've watched Disney Plus lose massive numbers of subscribers at the same time that the entire paradigm is moving towards streaming. In other words, Disney should be lifted just by virtue of the fact that they're in the side that's growing overall. They're not. So Culture, your name is Culture Casino. Explain the culture to us, please.
Well, it looks to me, and I think it looks to many others that we're seeing these types of shifts from linear television over to streaming of some sort. We're seeing the shift not necessarily happen the way that a lot of industry analysts would have expected. You're seeing growth in different places. Now, while people may be moving out of linear, they're still consuming products through diginets, which are the digital channels that are available through the broadcast stream. But you're not seeing an equal number of people leaving the linear space and going over to streaming. So there's a bunch of people just completely disappearing from that type of consumption. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you have people leaving one medium to go to the other, that you wouldn't have all of the boats rising on the other side of things. I am not quite sure what's happening with Disney, which was or maybe still is the largest media company out there in existence. But even that's now starting to come into question, as far as these types of entertainment products, whether it be film, television, or similar. And so I've been watching this phenomenon happen, and it's not lost on me that Disney seems to be the one that's not really benefiting. Because their strategy, I believe, was so rushed and so hurried, on top of the quality of their offerings, they've been poorly received, to be kind. And so I think that the audiences have been rather frustrated with what they've been receiving from Disney and are not directly supporting them with their dollars. I mean, that would be the logical conclusion to the fact that Disney is not growing. In fact, they're retracting. So you would expect them to do much better in this area, and they just aren't. I mean, you've cited 300,000 per quarter that they're losing in North America alone, which is their most valuable market. That's where the bulk of the ARPU support comes from, the average revenue per user. Whereas the other streaming entities took a much more measured pace and are really starting to secure their footholds in North America, and have slowly rolled out their global expansion, where the ARPU is less valuable, especially in markets like India. In fact, David Zaslav was speaking about that in his quarterly call, basically, thumbing his nose at Disney because they pursued a lot of unprofitable markets, or lower value markets is how he referred to them as. So
culture, let me throw this at you too. Part of explaining entertainment and keeping people ahead of the culture curve is noticing what the audience is saying.
Yeah.
So I think partly what is going on here is that audiences have checked out of Disney.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Star Wars has a huge apathy problem. I think that Marvel now is entering into that same sort of apathetic stage, where people no longer hate what's happening. People don't care about what's happening. I've seen this response in videos that I've done where, in all fairness, we try to cover Disney from, calling balls and strikes.
Yeah.
And there are times when Disney does stuff well. This idea that they're going to put Wolverine and Spider-Man together. If you came to me and said, "Hey, Pro, what would you do to fix Marvel?" Okay, well, I might do that, because that may be your best play that you have.
Yeah.
And the response from audiences, of course, has been, "Who cares? Marvel is dead to me now," etc. Now, we can do that anecdotally, but we can also see it objectively. So in the latest Nielsen ratings culture, we saw Bluey, the little cartoon preschool dog, right? It's a cartoon for 4-year-olds.
Right.
It quadrupled Secret Invasion's ratings. That shouldn't be possible. I mean, we're not trying to take away from Bluey. Bluey's a fantastic show. It should have its ratings. But Secret Invasion, or any other Marvel show or Star Wars show, should not perform so poorly that it's possible for a pre-K show to quadruple its ratings. That should be impossible. So are we witnessing something, culture, where the audiences have simply said, "I've had enough. I'm walking away," and perhaps this is even bigger than Disney. Perhaps this is a huge segment of society that says, "I'm checking out from the gatekeepers, and I'm leaving the establishment media, and I'm going to the independent creators, such as what we're watching and doing right now on YouTube."
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and I think it's substantial. I think Disney definitely is the one that we can witness suffering the most. Perhaps that's why our attention is drawn there. But it's funny that you mentioned Bluey, and it's an interesting conversation because I would say that the reason that the most successful program for Disney is Bluey is because it's family friendly, which Disney has largely abandoned. You aren't worried about putting your child in front of that program. In fact, a lot of adults watch that program with their kids, probably because they've been burned so many times by entities like Disney, thinking that they can set their kids in front of something that's PG and it will be safe for the kids to watch. And that speaks to a different kind of shift in our culture, but that's neither here nor there. But I think you're right. I think that Disney is the one suffering the most. I think Warner Brothers is also suffering. And again, when you say again.
That's a good point about Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, when you see that, I mean, what doesn't it come down to brand trust? I mean, we've been talking about trust for a long time, either whether it be here or on other people's channels, or I or even mine. There is not a lot of trust for Disney, and in fact, it has resulted in that apathy you're talking about because again, the audience has been burned so many times. You've been delivered a mediocre, if that quality of product, probably lower than that in a lot of people's estimations. And I think that's the primary ingredient in the destruction of these companies is that they aren't providing the audience with what they want to hear. And you always have to listen to your audience, bro.
Well, and one thing to think about culture is people may say, well, Pro, why did you talk about, quasi-political issues, or maybe they're distinctly political? And the answer to that is maybe entertainment is bifurcating based on political viewpoints or worldview, concepts. I don't know, but that may be what we're witnessing.
Yeah.
Now, let's take a look at this article from the Hollywood Reporter, lest we lose it. This is by Rick Porter, by the way. Broadcasting cable networks made up less than half of all TV use in July, the first time linear TV viewing has fallen below 50% in Nielsen's 2+ years of tracking viewing time by platform. While overall TV use in July edged up from the previous month, the growth came in streaming, which hit an all-time high of 38.7% of all TV usage, and the other use category, which includes video games played on a TV screen and physical media playback, among other things, that made up 11.6% of usage. Streaming was up from 37.7% of TV viewing in June, marking its third consecutive month of an increased share of viewers' time. July was also the third straight month that streaming share of TV use hit a high. Now, all of this is interesting simply because we're going into the writer strike, actor strike stage where we probably will really see an impact from it. So the cadence of content is very quickly closing down. Late night TV is dead. It may never come back. I'm not sure that it's a high value proposition for the networks anyway anymore. No. You're seeing, shows are coming to a stop, of course. We're watching as movies now will be, what would you say, the release schedule will be changed for the next year. And this strike is now becoming much more significant than the prior strike that we saw, which, some of those impacts are still felt until this day. Hollywood is sort of nuking itself, I would say. I mean, it really is. It's just devastating itself. And so, culture, one of the things that we're watching is that perhaps not covered well enough, but we're beginning to see the industry shut down as a result. Yeah. And so this is out of Channel News Asia, also breaking just today, just this morning. Lucasfilm to shut Singapore operations, affecting more than 300 employees. And this article goes on to talk about the fact that Industrial Lights and Magic, their studio in Singapore, which was largely credited for doing Star Wars: The Clone Wars, is shutting down. Now, this reads as if this is the only studio shutting down, but in my opinion, that's not guaranteed. Disney could shut down more. And the other fascinating thing, culture, is that as we're watching this, there was supposed to be this big media push that told us all that Disney was going to have 3 rounds of layoffs and they were going to end in the summer. 7,000 jobs, 7,000 jobs, 7,000 jobs. That's what they said over and over. But the layoffs have quietly continued. They just don't cover it anymore. And so here you have another studio shutting down. Now, the reasoning that the article gives, and folks, the link is in the description, the reasoning that the article gives is that Disney needs to shut down the studio due to the strike, right? Because the work situations are different now. shows are not going to be coming out, movies are not going to be on the docket, and so they don't need the studio. Well, I don't ever recall this being a thing where you assume that a strike will go on forever and you won't need the studio when it returns. This is a permanent closure. It's not a temporary closure for a strike. This is permanent. And so that doesn't hold water for me. So I think we're starting, culture, to see pragmatically that Disney is cutting off the parts of itself that produce the content that audiences did not like and have left. That speaks to me in volumes beyond anything we'll ever see in a press release, right? What do you think about this idea that perhaps the damage that Disney has seen on their streaming side is now having practical implications on the lives of their employees who are being let go?
Wow. Well, I mean, perhaps this is an imperfect analogy, but Disney is shedding the limbs that are cursed with leprosy at this point.
Right. Yeah.
And I would say that the Singapore story speaks to a larger shift for Disney in the number of employees that they have in their company. I would say that the 7,000 people, and this is something that I've talked behind the scenes with you and others about, but I that's going to get a lot closer to that 12,000 number that was being bandied about months ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's not unexpected. And I think the only way for Disney to appear to yield any type of profit or head in the right direction is to shed the failing units. So
so pause on that though, culture, because this is what's interesting about this. And folks, listen closely on this. Lucasfilm is largely a failed studio. In fact, you would be hard pressed to find anything that Lucasfilm does well. They have largely decapitated and decimated every franchise they have. In fact, we'll have news on Indiana Jones coming out very soon that I think is interesting. However, the one healthy part, and I mean the one healthy part of Lucasfilm, is ILM.
Yes.
Now they're cutting out the jobs of ILM. If you're on the creative side at Lucasfilm, you've got to be absolutely sitting there sweating to death every day you go to work, because if they are beginning to now shed the successful part of your studio and they haven't yet come for you, whoa, tough times I think are coming for the writers and the studio creatives over there at Lucasfilm proper in San Fran.
Well, in speaking specifically to the studio in Singapore that we were just looking at, that studio has been in existence for about 20 years.
Yeah, it's formed by George Lucas himself.
Yeah,
for the purposes of carrying out their work.
Well, yeah, and primarily animation, I think, initially, but I don't know how that expanded beyond. But it's not the only part of Lucasfilm that's shedding bodies right now. And I think that you pointed that out, earlier. Lucasfilm is more than just a failed studio, Pro. I would even suggest that it's failed in every aspect of its production. The only thing that has been successful, as you pointed out, is ILM, but their publishing, which we've covered recently, their publishing efforts have not exactly gone well, and they abandoned one of their most lucrative areas in bailing out of gaming and handing that off to somebody else. So they've really done themselves a disservice by producing subpar material, and that's being kind, and really limiting what their total value is to the company overall. I would even suggest that, in light of your analysis and paying attention myself, that it's possible Lucasfilm could fail to exist as we know it. It could essentially just be rolled in completely into Disney. A lot of people suggested that they could sell it. I don't think that will work. I don't think there's enough value there for anybody that takes it over, because they have devalued the franchises so much. So I think they're stuck with it, but I'm not sure it's going to exist as something separate anymore. It might just be a nameplate. We'll see.
So, Culture, let me ask you the big question, I suppose, that the video is leading up to, and this will be our last topic of conversation, let's say.
Oh.
Is this a backlash that we're witnessing specifically and distinctly against Disney, or is this something that's happening in our culture more broadly, in which a large swath of society is revolting against the whatever this mainstream media is, whatever this establishment media is, corporate media, however you want to phrase it.
Mhm.
Are we witnessing a large swath of society saying we've had enough of whatever they're doing?
Well, actually, I think you've answered your own question right at the very beginning of the video when we started talking about this by talking about the cultural shift in what's popular. What's become popular is these songs that are anti-corruption, anti-establishment, and all that stuff. We haven't seen
What a
that.
bizarre thing!
We,
How
we,
bizarre is that for your summer hits?
we haven't seen that since the '60s. I mean, when
No,
my
you're
parents,
right.
you know,
The
and
conservatives
so
have become the hippies.
which is weird. Well, look at me and my long hair, but no, we are seeing a substantial shift in the culture. I mean, it's reflected in the audience and the audience numbers, of course. And I'm actually writing a piece on that for a magazine that I'll let everybody know about when it gets published. But
Well, hold on to culture.
yeah,
Let me ask you though.
yeah.
Does that mean then that perhaps by looking at entertainment as we do each and every day, are we seeing something like the protests of the Vietnam War? Okay, let's take that as an example, 60s, 70s. Are we seeing that level of protest against government corruption right now in the in entertainment, in the popular entertainment, right? And not what the corporate entities want, but out of just what's grassroots coming out. Are we seeing that, and that's just not getting any coverage in the media?
No, actually, you're seeing the opposite of that. You're seeing support of the establishment by the artist, which is
Okay,
is
yes, but from
crazy.
the audience. But the audience is what I'm
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about.
Oh no, yeah, I would agree. Okay, so let's look at a few things now. Any analyst would take a look at the fact that during summer television viewing always winds down, right?
Sure.
So it winds down substantially because linear programs are not on anymore. People's favorite shows have ended. But why isn't there even a more considerable jump in streaming at that point? And again, my argument's everybody's walking away.
Right.
Your original question, which now escapes me, was having.
I apologize. I apologize.
No.
You were making some great points. I had to hit on them.
No, it's fine. But I see a substantial shift in the audience. The audience is wholesale rejecting entertainment. It's just that the people that are rejecting the most is Disney. But they're rejecting everything right now.
Does that mean the other studios can get away from it, culture? Does that mean that the other studios could pivot and get back the audience and be like, oh no, we're not Disney?
I would suggest that they're already trying to do that. I'm looking at the efforts of Warner Brothers and like the complete pause on attacking the audience that Sony did, with the exception of a few, somewhat offensive to people, stickers and, across the Spider-Verse or whatever that was called. But I would say that you're seeing the other studios give an opportunity to, get a leg up on Disney, maybe play catch up if Disney's still the leader. I would even argue that maybe that's not even true anymore. And I think that's an absolutely wonderful observation. But like I said, you're seeing this shift in culture where the audience is no longer interested in. You describe it as apathy. I describe it as kind of it's actually a mix of apathy and anger. We're seeing audiences turn on the corporations. There's a sudden interest in earnings reports. I mean, consider the amount of audience that we generated for 3 different consecutive live streams leading into the Disney earnings report.
Yes.
The people are more interested in that. Consider the number of people that were up at 5 a.m. To watch Valiant Renegade, myself, many others, including you, talk about Warner Brothers, right?
Yes.
The people their interest in entertainment companies has shifted. It's not even to the entertainment that they produce anymore. It's the fact that maybe they're celebrating or witnessing some kind of Schadenfreude because they feel like they're getting some payback on these companies that have so damaged the properties that they love.
And is that though culture? And I hate to interrupt you. I'm doing that too much this video, but
it's fine.
Does that Schadenfreude about the studios, is that actually perhaps two worldviews competing against one another, and one worldview is taking, I don't want to say taking joy, but is noticing and perhaps saying to themselves, this is what we have been saying would happen to you, to the other worldview. And now that that's happening, the other side is saying, see, we told you so. We told you so, we told you so, and we've checked out. So is it something that's more broad, I suppose? And that's sort of the, I keep saying this, but are we witnessing something that is, two cultural groups coming head to head, one with another? Perhaps you might call it the coastal elites versus the middle America, however you want to term this. We'll just stick with term this. However you want to term this, is this bigger than just the entertainment studios? That's what I'm trying to get at, because it seems to me that we're at the precipice of a major shift, or perhaps conflict between these two sides.
You're right. I mean, there is a massive cultural shift. You've hit the nail right on the head. I don't think you have to suggest it. I think it's rather evident. And I believe it could be, it could be substantially worse than it is right now. But it is a group of people telling the other group of people, we told you this would happen. And the only,
I wonder how long until that other group starts making their own content and making their own media and becomes successful at it.
I would suggest it's already started to happen. And a lot of the media that has been created that was for that purpose, to kind of balance the scales, is either just starting to make it to the audiences, or is currently being developed and will get there soon. I think
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, indeed. That sat on the shelves for how long? 5 years. But it's bigger than that. There's more content coming, and we've seen. Look, everybody's rejecting all the entertainment companies. Look at the box office revenues for all but 2 films this summer. Look at the failures of Warner Brothers. Look at the failures with the only success being Barbie, which is a different IP held by Mattel. Look at the success or limited success in the States of films like franchise films like Fast and the Furious from earlier in the year. Look at the complete collapse of Indiana Jones. I mean, all of these things, and so does the audience. It's just we're seeing that cultural shift in real time, and actually a rebellion against it in a certain way, which I think is being reflected in, again, returning to the 2 songs that you were referencing,
and returning to the idea of Star Wars. You're exactly right. We're watching a cultural rebellion against perhaps corruption, and that is bleeding through, or perhaps we're seeing it more prominently in the realm of entertainment. I think it's hard to see it in the realm of politics, because that has become so dangerously conflicting right now. So we'll see what happens there, but in the realm of entertainment, it seems to me that one side is predominantly winning at this point. I'm not saying that as someone who wants one side or the other to win, but it's hard to ignore when you have protest songs from people who normally would not be at the number 1 spot back to back doing that.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I've by the time everybody sees this, I will have released the video that I made, but it's going to drive even more frustration for people that are paying attention, because the cultural elites, we'll call the actors and entertainers of whatever type, are actually seeking to rob the safety net of you and I, normal people. And I'm not sure people will see it that way till they see the video, but I mean, you're talking about people who voluntarily walked out of work now wanting to live on the common man's dime.
Yes, and they're having to sell. I heard this report yesterday about one of the celebrities. We won't name him, but one of the celebrities is talking about he's got to sell his home to make ends meet, and find out, well, it's a $2 million home, and he'll probably buy a $1.7 million home to replace it if he doesn't have another one already. And it's like, I'm not sure that the average folks out there are really able to understand your plight.
I think he's going to be okay. But and again, I did a video about that yesterday.
Van down by the river. I don't think he's going to live there.
I think he's
going to tell us about your video. Tell us about your video that's out today.
Oh, no. Yesterday, I specifically that actor, and I don't need to promote that or even today's video. But what I do need to promote is the fact that I got a lot of help getting to 10,000 subscribers, and it was.
Hey, that's right.
And I want to say thank you to you, to Valiant, to all of my friends, all of the people that I consider friends here in the digital space, but also in real life. And you guys have made a profound effect on. I feel a profound effect from you, and obviously it's been helpful for us to all collaborate. So
that's right. Anyway. Well, Culture, it is a great pleasure to do so. There's almost no greater joy in the world than watching your friends succeed. You are definitely a friend, and I'll say this. We can promote and we can promote and we can promote. if the product that we're promoting is subpar, it'll never work.
That's true.
When we send people to you to watch your channel, they come away exceedingly happy with the type of content you produce and with the type of person who is producing the content. So I think that overall, all we're doing is saying, hey, there's something fantastic happening on this channel, and people are going and saying, you're right, there is something fantastic here at Culture Casino. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We hope we've done just a little bit of fantastic. If you agree, click the like button, share, subscribe, and click it, stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. And whether you agree or not, the conversation here has come to a close. The commentary begins. So drop a comment down below. Let us know what you think. We covet your comments. We care about what's on your mind. Don't let those go to waste. Please share them. It's worth our time. Folks, the Pro Show is live Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you check it out. Culture, you still doing that YouTube thing over on your channel we've been talking about?
Of course, yeah. Check it out. We've got lots of wonderful content coming out, as I mentioned before, and I'm starting to get articles in different locations, including here on that Park Place. But I've got another one coming out here soon that I'm kind of proud of, talking about the fact that the culture is so shifted that the earnings reports are more entertaining than the internet.
I cannot wait to read it. And folks, remember to check out thatparkplace.com, where you will find all of your favorite content creators right there on the page. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch the Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.